Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the extent to which the coronavirus pandemic has actually let the government get away with much of the damage of Brexit, because as damage as it still has been, well, it could have been a lot worse, and in fact would have been a lot worse. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, I don't know exactly how politically damaging the realities of Brexit would have been for Boris Johnson's government had the pandemic not emerged when it did. However, we can certainly say that it would have been a serious challenge for them. And we know that Johnson absolutely feared the consequences of the path he took. Because before the pandemic, he was banning officials from using the word Brexit. He abolished the government's Brexit department just when it was most needed. He did everything he could in order to claim that the getting Brexit done was leaving the EU and that anything else was completely unrelated. When January the 1st, 2021 hit and the economic apocalypse began, he needed to deny that it was anything to do with Brexit, much as he already has. Except with how things have panned out, the Conservatives get to do that by blaming much of the economic damage on the pandemic, for which, of course, they did their very best. The pandemic has absolutely distracted attention away from Brexit. When Boris Johnson told the Conservative Party conference last year that the pandemic was an opportunity, I think he mostly meant in terms of squandering huge sums of public money on Tory donors who would then be more than happy to donate some of those profits as kickbacks to the party come the next general election so that they could do more of it in the next parliament as well. But he may also have been referring to the fact it was going to let him get away with Brexit scot-free. Right now, people's main focus is on the pandemic. They want the vaccinations to go out, which so far is working well. And they want the lockdown restrictions to be eased, which they will, whether or not the data supports it. This is why the Conservatives are riding high in the polls, despite making a mess of the pandemic and completely sinking our economy with Brexit. It's Stockholm Syndrome, isn't it? Quite frankly, it's Stockholm Syndrome, classic. Just people don't see it. And they're certainly not being told either by the media. But the pandemic isn't just a distraction. It has provided a very real cushion for the political consequences for Brexit. Not a cushion that protects our economy or businesses, but one that shares the damage, making Brexit less culpable. So take, for example, trade between Britain and the EU. It's been hit very badly. We've seen the reports, I've talked about them. The government claimed that it's back to normal now. It isn't. No doubt that we wait a couple of months to find out that they were lying again, they'll say, all right, yeah. But it is back to normal now. It'll never stop until we as a country finally see through the conman's tricks. But it could have been far worse. So think about the worst hit areas, trade in food and drink. Well, it's not just the UK that has restrictions on hospitality. They exist in different parts of Europe at different times. This has suppressed the demand for these goods. So as bad as the Brexit trade barriers have been, they would have been much worse if we were trying to trade in larger volumes. I did a video earlier today, or perhaps later today, or perhaps a different day. YouTube time travel is very tricky, in which I quoted a small business owner saying, "We've been sold a dud. If it weren't for COVID, people would be shouting from the rooftops." Not only has COVID distracted people, like I say, but that suppression in demand for trade due to pandemic restrictions has also lessened the immediate impact. Now here's the thing, that impact will be felt. As restrictions are lifted long term, which may not be this year, but as the pandemic recedes, which at some point it must, and assuming there isn't another one waiting around the corner to mug us, then we will try and pick up that trade as demand grows. We won't be able to. And the greater damage will become apparent. But only apparent to those paying attention, and of course for those whose jobs and livelihoods depend upon it. For the majority of the public, will it become apparent at all? Remember that Johnson was trying to say that Brexit had been done last February. He was desperate to deflect criticism from Brexit consequences this year by saying it had nothing to do with Brexit, because Brexit had been done 11 months earlier. You know, this was just new. Probably the EU being mean or something, but certainly nothing to do with Brexit. Now he doesn't care about Brexit being in the past tense. He once again talks about it, not only in the present, but the future tense as well. He's quite happy. He's even appointed a Brexit cabinet minister. There are even junior Brexit ministers now. The fear has gone because he knows that the consequences will arrive in consignment. The consequences that hit us as Brexit unfolded were masked by the pandemic. The later ones will come in little packets as opposed to one big King Kong sized dump on our doorstep. People will not necessarily see the link between future damage and Brexit if it doesn't come all at once and it doesn't coincide, chronologically speaking. So now we will just likely suffer the damage without the Conservatives copying the consequences. Every new problem will just be put down to new EU rules or something like that. A new play by the EU that wasn't expected at the time and just them being mean-spirited. And it will probably work as well. Then there's services. Now, this might be a permanent save of Brexit blushers. So I started thinking about this when I was talking to my partner. So she works for a large European-based multinational manufacturer. Before the pandemic, I often used to remark about how archaic is the nice way of putting it. I might have used ruder words. Some of their business practices were, especially where travel for meetings was concerned. Not meetings with customers, with each other. Why would you do that, I said. What an expensive waste of time. Travelling across the country, travelling to other countries. Just use video conferencing. Well, now they do. Of course they do. And you know what? They've been working a lot more efficiently. Who knew? Everyone had to do this out of necessity. Seemed brainless to me that it wasn't used more before. It didn't require the pandemic, surely, to see the benefits. Who wants to do all that travelling? Who wants the cost of it all? Who wants the bill? But there we are. But what happens when the pandemic declines? Will they go back to expensive, time-consuming, inefficient travel to arrange those meetings? I mean, some might. Middle managers are a little bit like politicians. You don't have to be clever, just plausible enough to convince another group of intellectually limited people that you are the best person for the job, despite all the evidence to the contrary. You will get good ones, of course you will, who will see the efficiencies now in remote conferencing and adopt that as a long-term standard tool. You may get bad ones who do not, but there will surely be a net reduction in travelling to meetings within a company. And this is actually a cushion for Brexit. Because as time-consuming and expensive as travel was before the pandemic, imagine what it would have been like now that Brexit is here without the pandemic. British-based workers probably arriving 2 days late for their meeting. But you won't bother now. There'll probably never be that outcry about how restricting our movement is costing us business efficiency, because the pandemic has shone a light into the dim executives' minds that meetings can be held remotely, and are better for it. So there'll be no outcry from the business world, from companies complaining that they can't connect their British and other European workers together efficiently. Any manager who even tries to arrange physical meetings and has the temerity to complain about travel restrictions will just be told to do it on Zoom, as anyone with any brains will already be doing. Or some video conferencing app anyway. Not promoting Zoom here, never used it in my life. Discord or Google Classroom are the way I've been going. Teams can die in a fire, I will say though. Now, I get that there will still be need to travel to see customers or clients, or whatever you want to call them. That will still be hit by Brexit. And that may well generate some anguish on the part of the industry. But that may also be years away. Certainly well clear of the Brexit landing site. So again, difficult to get members of the public to connect the dots there without media help, and that media help will not be forthcoming. But it will be a real problem. I mean, if you're someone who needs to travel to the EU a lot for business, once the pandemic is over, you're going to need an EU passport if you either want to get, across the border quickly, or if you spend a lot of time in such travel. Remember the 90-day maximum. All very messy. And none of this helps actually soften the blow of Brexit, but it absolutely cushions Boris Johnson's big fat ass from the fall. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.